Sigma announced 5 RF lenses in April, and according to Sigma France, all 5 models will be shipped by January of 2025. So does this clear up resources to announce more lenses? Announce full-frame lenses? Well, according to a news source, Sigma will announce new lenses soon. We also have a big firmware update from Canon. But before we get to the details, please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything, helps this channel grow, and keeps you up to date on the latest camera coverage. According to a news source, Sigma is going to be releasing new RF lenses, and it's going to happen at CP+. CP+ is the largest Japanese photo and video trade show, and it's held in Yokohama, Japan. And it's also the first big trade show of the year. And no, I don't consider CES to be any sort of photo and video trade show. We seldom get any camera announcements. The source didn't happen to mention if the lenses would be APS-C, or if they would be full-frame lenses, like the 24-70, or the 150-600mm. But Sigma France has recently said that they were very happy with the welcome that they received from the Canon community, so it's very likely that we'll at least see more APS-C lenses. But sadly, no one's provided us with any more information on those specifics. Yeah, it's too bad. Now, Canon has recently announced the 24 and 50mm L series f1.4 and the 70-200mm. But these lenses aren't affordable to many that find Sigma offerings to be more affordable. And I know what you're thinking. Canon's probably got some sort of restrictions in place on what Sigma can produce. Well, Sigma France once again, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, came forward and said that, well, based on what they know, there aren't any restrictions on what they can make. However, they did leave the door open to there being some sort of roadmap. And if there is some sort of roadmap, that would explain why we're getting APS-C lenses, and a fair bunch of them, and not full-frame lenses. But February of 2025, the end of February, that's almost a year after the announcement. It's about 10 months after the announcement back in April. So it is plausible that we could see some sort of announcement for full-frame lenses. And that would be exciting. And if that is the case, if according to this source, which is a news source so it has no track record, we are supposed to get an announcement at CP+ by Sigma, then I would expect leaks to start coming relatively soon. Maybe not this month, maybe sometime towards the end of December or early January. It would be nice to see some new lenses. But now it's time to turn our attention to something else. Nikon has just released a new camera, the Z50 Mark II, and it's now available for sale. We didn't hear any, well, I wouldn't say we didn't hear any rumors coming up to this event because, well, Nikon rumors had been saying all along that we are going to have a new camera announced soon. It's either the Nikon Z50 or the Coolpix P1000. And of course we had the camera registration, so we knew something was coming. Despite what some were hoping, it definitely wasn't the Nikon Z7 Mark III. And it's definitely not going to be the Nikon, or it wouldn't have been the Nikon Z9 Mark II. I do believe that camera's coming sometime in 2025. It marks 4 years after the announcement of the Mark I. And what could happen, and what I'd be really excited about, is how much red technology is going to be implemented in the camera. And based on that patent application that we saw a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, the one that they had filed and published just 3 months afterwards, about a new sensor, a sensor that's both a global shutter and a rolling shutter all in one. So if you take a picture, in the same frame, it can use parts of the sensor as a global shutter and other parts as a rolling shutter. That's certainly interesting. But that's all conjecture at this point because it's not tangible. Our next story is something tangible, and it's about a big firmware update for Canon cinema cameras. The firmware covers the C80, C500, C300, C70, R5C, and the XF605 camcorder. First up is the C400, and it's going to get Adobe's Frame.io camera to cloud, and that gives you in-camera activation and transmission of proxy files via wireless or wired Ethernet. 1.5 times anamorphic de-squeeze display assist option. Now the next one is a nice one. Now this is when saving the output frame pull down, and you can assign that to a button to maintain exposure. It also adds 1920 by 1080 output option for monitor out and HDMI interfaces. And it supports communications with the new lenses, the RF 70-200mm f2.8L series USM, the RF 24 and 50mm VCM lenses. But now turning our attention to the C80, it also gets many of the same capabilities with the exception of that 1.4 times anamorphic de-squeeze option. The C500 Mark II and C300 Mark III get a single update, and that's the ability to display the digital teleconverter icon when it's activated. And the C70 gets that digital teleconverter icon when activated, and of course compatibility with the new lenses, the RF 17-120 Cine Servo, the 70-200 f2.8, and the 24 and 50mm f1.4s. The EOS R5C, not to be left out, gets an update to support the recent lens announcements, that digital teleconverter icon, and new subject tracking trigger. The AF frame can now be moved in the display by dragging or sliding it to the desired location. And the last update is the Canon XF605 camcorder. It gets 3 improvements: improved lens focus ring responsiveness, improved headphone volume control, and that digital teleconverter icon when activated. And for those of you that were looking for a firmware update for the Canon EOS R5 Mark II that was supposed to happen by the end of October, well, it's November the 7th now, and Canon Rumors hasn't given us an update, so I'm not exactly sure where that is. However, Tony, I wouldn't be surprised if we get that update before, well, at least Christmas. Sony, however, does have an announcement planned for November the 19th. It's going to be at 9 a.m. in the morning, and I'm going to be doing a live stream with my expert panel starting 1 hour earlier at 8 a.m. And the products to be announced, if you're not a Sony fan, well, you might still be very interested in this, because we've got the Canon R1 that's supposed to start shipping any day now, an international embargo around November the 18th. But Sony's going to be announcing their high-end flagship camera, the A1 II. And along with the A1 II, their first f2 lens, the 28-70mm f2. Yep, that does sound very similar to the Canon RF, 28-70mm f2. Now the Canon is $29.99, currently on sale, I think $27.99. And the Sony is supposed to be priced right around the same price point. And that's why I already have the smart pre-order links in the description down below, these guys here. If you're looking at purchasing the A1 II or the lens, then please copy down and use my affiliate links or my pre-order links. It's what keeps the lights on. It's what keeps this channel going. And that's why you don't see a 60-second Squarespace or some other VPN ad at the beginning of this video. I think it's much more important to put all the information right at the front, then go into the analysis, and then talk about affiliate links and stuff like that, instead of weighing down the camera or this channel with a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning that just frustrates you. I get that, and that's why I haven't done that. So I use affiliate links and pre-order links in place of doing all that. There is one more thing I want to talk to you about. The last couple of days, I spent my time downtown in Toronto at Profusion, their photo, video, and cinema trade show. And I was quite, well, surprised. It was my first time there. And I knew the reason why they call it Profusion, because it's designed for pros. It's a fusion of both video and stills. And as you can tell from the B-roll here, well, the trade show had all the big names there, from Sony, Canon, Panasonic, Nikon, Lumix, Pentax, and of course a whole bunch of supporting lens businesses and lighting, and well, they had everything there. It was exciting. My feet are tired. Walking around on concrete all day was just unbearable. And that's probably why I spent a bit more time at the Canon and Sony booth, because they had that, how should we say, under padding. It was like walking on a cloud after a long time. Now, I didn't pick up any information, but I used this as a bit of a, how should we say, well, networking experience. And out of this, don't be surprised if I might be doing some reviews on some drones in the future. I'm really looking forward to that. But I also talked to some Cine lens producers, and I was talking to some folks that had Arri and Red cameras. I don't think I'm quite ready to jump into that segment yet, but I gotta tell you, I really felt the calling to something like a Red V Raptor X or XL. I know they're not cheap. And of course the Arri, it looks really good, but again, that's even more. All I can say is I feel the calling right now, but I'm not ready to make the plunge. But that isn't to say I didn't purchase anything. Now this was sponsored by Vistech, which is one of Canada's professional high-end, although you and I can go there too, photo video stores. They also do other things related to printing, and it is smart the way they did it. It was completely free. You could enter free, but it was all about, hey, at this show, look at all these discounts. They're going to be the best discounts you see all year round. Really, really smart. I mean, I've never seen a trade show that's free in Toronto, so to have it free is really, it's very, very smart, because then we buy stuff. And I did buy something, and I bought, but I actually had to call Patrick at Downtown Camera because they didn't have the RF 50mm f1.4 VCM available for sale. So I had to call Patrick and say, hey, Patrick, put me on the list. I heard a few reviews saying that when you picked up the lens, let's use this as an example, because of the VCM motor, it sounded like you were shaking a spray can tin. It would just make too much noise. It was distracting. It seemed, well, I wouldn't use the term amateurish. I can't remember some of the words the viewers used. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm there. Let's try out all these lenses, including the 800mm f5.6. I'm getting off topic. Back to the 50mm f1.4. So I picked it up. It was loud in there, and I moved it back and forth. And yeah, you could hear something in there moving, but it wasn't loud. It wasn't obnoxious. It was strange, but it was so light in my hand. I put it on the camera. I was using the 50 f1.2 for much of the shooting, and I was amazed at how solid it felt and small. Not how solid it felt. All Canon L series feel solid, but you know what I mean. It's small and solid. Just when you've held the 50mm f1.2 and you hold something smaller like this, I thought, wow. Now, obviously, the glass is smaller. The glass might not be isn't up to the same standard, but I shoot a lot of video. Will I notice the difference in sharpness? And that's something I'm going to find out. But what I really like about it, see with this lens here, when I move back and forth, even though I'm about, well, 7 or 8 feet away, it sounds like there's a small hamster or squirrel inside the camera chewing on a nut. And unfortunately, any shotgun mic on top, well, picks up on that. The 50mm f1.4 aimed more at video users is silent, completely silent. I held my ear to it. I couldn't hear a thing until it was turned off, and then you could hear that sound moving back and forth. And again, it only happens when it's off. So if you're close enough to Toronto, I highly recommend checking out Profusion at least next year. It's over now. It's for 2 days. And I actually bump into another creator. He was actually from California. And what's really kind of funny about the situation is I had reached out to him last week asking if he'd like to show up on my November the 19th live stream. And I hear this voice. It's a very distinct voice. And I turned around and looked. You know what? I think that is art. And it was art. So we had a chat, and unfortunately, it completely distracted me away from the questions I had for GoDocs. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. And he's a Sony shooter now. He was, I think, a Nikon shooter for the longest time. He's now a Sony shooter. So that should work very well for the November the 19th announcement. But that's it for now. One other thing you should pay careful attention to while there are great deals at Profusion here in Toronto. You also want to take a look at the all the camera and lens sales that are on right now. I've got a bunch of them in the description, some 20 to 30 of them. I've just updated the pricing because some of the prices have got even better. All the way from the R100 up to the 1DX Mark II. And of course at Nikon, a whole bunch of sales. And even Sony just put some sales on. The A7 IV, $400 off. Kind of tells you something's coming, doesn't it? And you know what? I have a little bit of information for Sony customers on what we might expect to see in Q1. But that, we're going to have to save that for another day. It's already how many minutes here? 22 minutes. So I'm going to end this one off. It'll probably end up being 60 minutes. Thank you so much for watching, staying till the end. Have yourself a great day, a great night, and we'll see you again soon. And Tony, it was also great seeing you at Profusion as well. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye now.